One of the hardest parts of making a game is actually production and bringing it all together and getting it in the box.
Today we cannot procedurally generate any type of content that artists are able to create.
The ownership definitely comes from the idea and the seed of the artist, and then the machine is the tool to create it and conceive it. Yeah, Minecraft is its own thing, isn't it? It's an incredible game, tool, experience, call it what you will. So you're inspiring people just to do whatever they want, and I think in that respect it's brilliant.
So Minecraft is one of perhaps the most popular such game where users create content, essentially. So the game gives you an environment, gives you tools, it gives you possibilities, constrains what you can do. So if you look at Minecraft, it's made of pixels and voxels, little sugar cubes, and you can create a lot of content, add a lot of details, but it's giving you tools to make that content in a very particular way.
It's just cubes. It's cubes with a different texture. But then some dude made, was it San Francisco, and it looks insane.
As a software maker, when you make that environment, well, it sort of limits the possibilities of what you give to the user, and therefore you can sort of refine the tools a lot and make it a really good experience. The other important aspect, I think, is that it is made as, sometimes it's called a multiplayer game. You are in an environment and you typically are there not alone. Or you can be there alone, you can be in a little part of the space and do your own thing. But you can also do it with friends, or you can bring your friends, or you can brag and tell them, oh look, I've done the great thing, much better than yours. There's a big aspect of that platform which is about the sort of social relations that has been well thought and brought into the concept from the early days.
With Minecraft, it kind of pioneered the procedurally generated world. So after Minecraft happened, there will be developers looking at that, seeing if they can replicate that. Microsoft
has just released a challenge where they're inviting anybody to think of how to use AI, we were talking of AI, in the context of Minecraft. You can think of AI as these procedures that you would add to the context of Minecraft, and these procedures could be there to create by themselves some of the content. So maybe when you go in a certain area in Minecraft space, you would have suddenly surprise because some things would emerge and they would not be created by you, not by someone else. Procedural generation is the generation of objects and content and imagery, and to sustain a virtual world for a game. And these processes were designed to mimic perhaps the way an artist goes about creating such content.
Procedurally generated content is where the game itself is like generated as you explore it. So you go to a new place and it's completely randomized. It's generated for you by your computer based on the game's algorithms. And as you go there, it's completely unique to what anyone else will discover. And wherever you go, you'll generate this map, because there's no like predefined map. There'll be, as you go, it will be generated. So your map will always be different from someone else's, so it'll always give like a different experience.
You can't make a narrative-based game procedurally, but an expansive world exploration game, yeah, be great. We use kind of procedural stuff all the time, really, whether it's making some procedural materials in Modo, in 3D software. You add a layer of noise, you add a layer of Perlin over the top, you add and you can quite easily build up procedural materials in that way, and that's quite often a good place to start if I'm doing some kind of 3D concepting or my own stuff, or just if you're doing stuff for render, then that's great.
One way of thinking of it is that all of these procedures, they are linked to humans. So they come out of looking or trying to understand how humans produce a certain category of content, and then you're able to encode it in a particular way, which mimics quite well, ideally, in the best cases, mimics what the human is doing.
The artist is quite often the guy who's come up with the concept and the idea, but he's not the creator. Sculptors, for example, they don't often build their sculptures, but they conceive and construct it in paper or in some form and sketch out an idea, and then it gets sent to a foundry, and then they create the final piece. So in a similar sense, the computer has an inherent ability to do what it's told based on what you input it. So I think if you can honestly say, oh, you've got an idea, and then you work out how you're going to get the computer to do it and how you're going to write the code or what have you, and set the rule set so that the end product is what you want, and if you tweak the end product till you get it exactly how you want it, then I would argue that you are still the artist and the computer is just the tool that allows you to do your work. No Man's Sky is the one that's coming, the biggie, which is amazing. I think that's a massive open world, and if that's successful and if people are loving it, I imagine they will open some doors to allow people to start generating their own worlds and start creating their own stuff. And I'm desperate to get hold of it and see what it's like. It looks stunning. It's a really bold visual as well, which is exciting. I mean, I heard that they still don't know what they've made yet. They're still getting testers to try and find out planets and things, and that's incredible.
Oh, what have I done? I don't think I was supposed to do that.
I think you've landed on top of that building.
Yes! Oh, yes!
Is it fully procedural? I don't think it is, because unless they have tools making models that are creating these plants, rocks, animals, space stations, planet, unless there is something generating those verts and those polygons and those textures, then it's not fully procedural.
One area where there's a lot of work on the research side is how to develop such procedural ways of creating content for cities, buildings, in the context of cities, where again in a city you have lots and lots and lots of building. So maybe it's a bit silly to ask an artist to create all the buildings in a city, although that's usually the way it's done. So this is an edit mode where you have underlying, the procedural part is when you start picking and changing the size. For example, you see the new buildings appear. So this is the procedural part, that the new buildings appear. You have very simple tools also, such as these, where you're painting an environment. So this is more like painting constraints. But the idea is that you can build from scratch a set of constraints that's going to be your terrains, for example, with a set of rivers, and now you're building different types of areas where when we go in the procedural mode, we will build content in that area which is of a particular style. And now you see a different color, so that's going to be another style. You can see now this is now a fully procedural mode, but it's using the constraint that the designer set initially. Here we were building new interactions where you can use gestures. Basically what was done here is that the user picked one style and then said, I want the same style on all the buildings. I want all the buildings to have the same height as this one, goes around. All the height as this one, goes around. But you see the style keeps being, having parameters linked to a building. Now you have this kind of gesture, so you do this kind of thing, and then it changed a particular type of feature to the object. This is exploring what kind of interaction with the procedures would be agreeable to an artist. If you're happy with the result, then you can move on to the game engine. So you should recognize more or less the same roads and types of buildings that we saw before, but now you see a lot more details, and you can see there's a lot of added effects that we didn't have before. But all the background, the streets, the main topology of the cities was rapidly generated with the procedural tool.
If you don't have enough input or enough variety of data or enough rule sets to create the variations and to create the interest, then it can just be very sanitized and boring. But actually, you start getting procedurally generated assets and art, then that could be a really interesting area. See where that takes us.